What's up, space pirates? This is your Admiral, the ruthlessly relaxed Dr. Disaster. And man, Square Enix really needs to go back to turn-based games in their Final Fantasy lineup again. Yes, I know they make other games like Octopath Traveler that are turn-based, but Clair Obscur Expedition 33 has showcased what a draw the turn-based genre can be. Just look at this. A week after its release, and Clair Obscur has now surpassed its previous all-time high max concurrent player count.
That's f***ing crazy, man.
Yeah, and the craziness doesn't end there. You want an idea as to how popular and beloved Clair Obscur is? For the few people out there hating on this game, feel free to put this in your pipe and smoke it, but it appears that Clair Obscur now has the highest rating on Metacritic from actual gamers, not critics, but the highest score from gamers of all time, standing tall at a whopping 9.7 out of 10. And here's another ridiculous record. This is its rating on the PlayStation Store right now. It is sitting at 4.91 stars out of 5, which is tied with the game Omori for the highest rating on the PlayStation Store with a minimum of 1,000 reviews of all time.
You love me! You really love me!
Indeed, people really love this game. Can you imagine how many copies this thing would have sold? And it's already sold somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 million copies on Steam alone thus far, but can you imagine how many it would have sold if the title had simply been altered to Final Fantasy XVII?
Holy shit.
I get the feeling that Square Enix is imagining what those numbers would be right about now. After all, their Final Fantasy games have traditionally sold copies somewhere in the ballpark of 10 million, but in the past few years, they have seen a significant drop-off ever since they've gone completely away from the turn-based combat and fully embraced the battle action style that they have now, which is akin to the Kingdom Hearts combat system. It's unclear if this is the only reason that people have walked away from Final Fantasy, but the correlation is pretty hard to ignore, and apparently I'm not the only one who thinks Square Enix has made a mistake. This analyst here thinks that Square is kicking themselves for making the change. They thought it would help them find new audiences for their games, but changing things has only driven a lot of people away.
Found anything yet? Nothing yet, sir. What about you guys? We ain't found shit.
Alright, me hearties, make sure you hit the like button on this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and don't forget to follow me over on X, where I keep a list of games lousy with woke shit pinned to the account at all times for your reference. My handle on the platform is Dr. Disaster 1. But let's look at the declining sales of Final Fantasy in the past few years, and then we will take a look at what this analyst here suggests Square Enix must be thinking right about now. First of all, according to the Video Game Sales Wiki, and you don't need me to tell you this of course, but Final Fantasy used to be an absolute powerhouse in the gaming market. They still have quite a reputation, they're still selling millions of copies, but their numbers have fallen off a cliff compared to what they used to be. Final Fantasy VII, back in the late 90s, sold around 14 million units. Final Fantasy VIII sold around 11 million. Final Fantasy IX, 10, and 12 all sold around 8 million copies. Of course, we skip past Final Fantasy XI because of its online nature, but then Final Fantasy XIII saw a bit of a rise, selling about 9.5 million copies. That was the game, though, where they first started flirting with the real-time action combat. It was kind of a hybrid combat system, and then, after that, they took a bit of a nosedive. Final Fantasy XIV was another online game, we're going to skip that, but Final Fantasy XV has only sold about 7 million units in the decade or so that it has been released. The Final Fantasy VII Remake, which should have been about the easiest layup in the history of gaming, has only managed to sell about 7 million units in the half-decade or so that it's been out, and I know I just said that it only sold 7 million, but that game should have hit truly astronomical numbers. It hasn't even beaten out the likes of Final Fantasy XIII, Final Fantasy XV, or even XII, whose muted sales numbers can pretty easily be attributed to a piss-poor release window. That game came out on the PS2 right after the PS3 had already released, and they never gave it a PS3 port, so a lot of people skipped that game. But anyhow, the 7 Remake should have blown all of those games away. And it's even worse with the latest 2 releases in the Final Fantasy family. FF16 is now 2 years old, and they've only sold 4 million copies. Sales really dried up for that game. And the same thing with FF7 Rebirth. That game is about a year old, and they've only sold 3 million copies. Once again, I know that a lot of games out there would kill for those numbers, but let's face it, Final Fantasy used to be in a league of its own. So, with all of that context in mind, let's peek at this article from Games Radar where it says Square Enix is probably kicking itself seeing the success of realistic turn-based JRPG Clair Obscur. Final Fantasy fans have been begging for the series to return to its turn-based roots for years, and according to one analyst, the success of Clair Obscur Expedition 33 probably has Square Enix feeling some regret over not catering to that niche sooner. The biggest factors in Expedition 33's success are its lovable characters, great combat, and relatively low $50 price tag, as Reese Elliott of Alinea Analytics tells GamesIndustry.biz. And yes, just as an aside, that price tag also crushes the narrative that all of these AAA studios have run with over the past several years, that in order to make good fun games, they need ridiculous budgets, which then requires crazy price hikes on their games. Perhaps if companies like Square Enix spent less money on stupid shit like an ethics department and hiring more and more screeching harpy HR ladies, then they wouldn't have to charge such prices. But anyhow, reading on, the article says, but he adds that there was also an opening for a modern, realistic-looking JRPG with a traditional battle system. Square Enix was reticent to do it with the Final Fantasy series. Elliot continues, now it's probably kicking itself. Expedition 33 has given RPG fans something they always wanted. If you asked Final Fantasy fans from the late 90s, early 2000s what the ideal version of a JRPG should look like, it'd be something like this. And yes, I can confirm that. I was very invested in the Final Fantasy games back in that time period, and Clair Obscur is what me and what my friends always talked about wanting. Back in 2022, Final Fantasy XVI producer Naoki Yoshida told Games Radar Plus that he understood the appeal of turn-based combat. After all, he came up alongside that style of gameplay just as series fans did, but he equally seemed to believe that action-based battles were a far better fit for games with realistic graphics. One thing that we found recently is that as graphics get better and better, and as characters become more realistic and more photoreal, is that the combination of that realism with the very unreal sense of turn-based commands doesn't really fit together, Yoshida said at the time. You have this kind of strange gap that emerges, and clearly the dude was incorrect. FF16 is now one of the lowest selling games in the mainline franchise of all time. Even though I hear pretty great things about the story, I haven't played it yet, and the reason for me personally is that I am turned off by the combat systems that they've been using. It works for something like Kingdom Hearts, but Final Fantasy is a different beast, and I have to imagine I'm not the only one who is turned away from Final Fantasy for this reason. Hopefully, Clair Obscur shows Square Enix that there is a better path moving forward, but let's be real. Square Enix has become about the most stubborn company of all time, so it's hard to imagine them changing things back. But I'm gonna leave it there. If Clair Obscur had been a Final Fantasy game without changing anything else but its name, how many copies would it have sold? And do you think Square Enix will be influenced by Clair Obscur? Drop your thoughts into the comment section below, and we will talk there. Thanks for watching, me hearties. If you haven't already, your Admiral is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.